Oh, welcome in. Wednesday live chat. This week's AT&T Byron Nelson. Also, those pesky PGA Championship salaries have been released. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about those at some point. But the next hour or so is your time. Whatever you want. Ownership, movies, pivots, DFS plays, long shots. I don't care. Time's yours. Get your questions, comments, concerns in the chat right now. We are indeed presented by the homies over at Jock Market. Talk more about them in just a little bit. I've been updating the tools on RickRunGood.com for Jock Market and getting some more information in there. We're going to have a power hour tonight, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, same place, Rick Run Good YouTube channel. Joe Idoni and myself are going to go through the entire market, but let's get into it. No Good Comics with a KN says, hey, Rick, what are some of the lower owned golfers in the 9K range and up? Any pivots that you feel good about? Also, did you see Doctor Strange over the weekend? Thanks for the content. No, I did not see it, but it is on my list. Armina, not a big superhero type movie. So I'll have to watch that one. By myself. I tried to get her to watch Endgame. She would not watch it with me under any circumstance. 9K golfers and above, low owned. So here is the cheat sheet at RickRunGood.com. And you should subscribe. That's what you should do. Here we go. So the lowest owned guys over 9K, I have right now Dustin Johnson, 10.4, Hideki at 14, Xander at 13, Tommy Fleetwood at 12. The two guys right there, Xander and Hideki, are, to me, X factors. You know, Hideki, when he's healthy, he's been awesome. And this should be a really good spot for him. And then Xander is just completely flying in under the radar. Nobody cares about the guy. Won the Zurich Classic with Patrick Cantlay last time we saw him. You can have all the narratives that you want around victory and all that fun stuff, but a $9,700 low-owned Xander Schauffele is pretty compelling, right? Pretty compelling. You want to talk about Birdie Fest with big greens. He's won the Tournament of Champions, right? Birdie Fest with big greens. I mean, I think that he's probably the most compelling option of the $9,000 guys. Pretty high up in my one and done. Who's the better play, Burns or Neiman? It's probably Burns. I don't think you have to get too cute here, right? He played well at the Zurich. He won at the Valero. He finished runner-up here last year, the only 1 year worth of data that we have. I believe he is a fairly high upside golfer. I think the range of outcomes for Neiman is probably a bit wider. I'm pretty bullish on both of them this week, but I think if you're looking for front-running ability, you don't care about much else. I think you have to go with Sam Burns here. Whoa, we are 3 questions in, and we're already getting a question from Biggie Balls. Can you do a deep dive, on Seth Reeves? I saw him at 1,400 to 1 somewhere, so I put a bit on it since I know he's a pretty long hitter, but I don't know much about him. Hopefully you can tell me more. We are going to put the Rick Run Good golf database to the test here. Let's see how many rounds I have on him. Okay, wow. I have 238 rounds on him. I have 238 rounds on Seth Reeves. Let's see. Yeah. So you're right. So I scrolled past his stats here, but his weapon is the driver. So 52nd in driving distance. He actually gains off the tee in a big way. He loses everywhere else. Lost 7.5 strokes on approach and Mexico. That should have been a pretty good spot for him. Lost 5 at Valero. Boy, this is pretty ugly stuff. There's a reason he's 1,400 to 1. I worry that no matter how far you hit it, you're not necessarily going to be able to overcome the rest of this game. And he just went to a place at Vedanta, which is similarly generous off the tee as TPC Craig Ranch, and a much easier field, and missed the cut there. That would be a lot of concern for me, Biggie Balls. Hey, Rick, give me your thoughts on Vegas. Well, it's a pretty good city to live in. Oh, Johnny Vegas. Haha, see what I did there? I know he had surgery, and then he was so good on approach last week, but bad off the tee. Yeah, so Mike, so those are related, right? The fact that he was worse off the tee than normal allows him to gain as many strokes as he did on approach, right? So basically the idea here is you lose 5.5 off the tee. You put yourself in a lot of really awkward positions. Greg Ducharme is calling me right now. Wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't that be really good if I just answered that right now during the live chat and brought him on? I don't know. I don't know if we're ready for that. Well, so Vegas sprays it off the tee, and then he hit a lot of really good second shots because he was out of position, gave him an opportunity to gain even more strokes. I like Vegas, right? He had the top 10 here last year. He had he's always been a very good off the tee player. Like that 5.7 that he lost at the Wells Fargo Championship, that's probably one of the worst of his career. Let's look. Yeah, by far the worst of his career. So that's pretty much an anomaly. I'm happy to roll Johnny Vegas right back out there again. Low 7K range looks ripe. Can you rank Kitayama, Pan, Neesmith, Kazire? Sure. I would probably go Kitayama, Kazire, Pan, Neesmith. I think they're all fair. Kitayama might be a legitimate top 10 threat a lot of weeks. This is a difficult field, a deep, strong field, but he might be a real top 10 threat more often than not. Pan's been great. Neesmith has always been this great approach player, but it's not always really turned into a bunch of results. And then Kazire, very good fantasy player. He can rattle off streaks. He can make an eagle. He makes more birdies and then offsets them with bogeys, but that's okay in fantasy scoring. So I don't mind that one single bit. Good afternoon, Rick. I haven't really heard anything about Adam Scott this week, and he seems to be a good course fit, especially for an outright bet. Thoughts on that? I don't know how great of a course fit he is. I probably agree that if you really want exposure to him, you should probably just bet him outright. Like that's fine. If everything clicks, I think he'd be okay. I'll tell you what, maybe he is a pretty good fit. He's inaccurate off the tee, but much longer than you would expect. Let me sort this by recent form here. Struggled in the ball striking. Okay, so I mean, this is probably better than I thought. The place that he loses consistently is around the green, which they're not difficult spots around the green. You shouldn't be playing from around the green. You should be playing from the green. Greens are very, very easy to hit. If we give him a pass at the Masters, which honestly, I think, his results at the Masters since he won were not that good. Let's see. Pretty deep into this now. Yeah, I mean, he hadn't had a bunch of good results at Augusta National since his victory, so it's not super unusual for him to struggle there. And then otherwise, it's been pretty good. Okay, you've convinced me. I'm certainly higher, Scott, on Adam Scott now than I was 10 seconds ago. Hey, Rick, appreciate your weekly content. Who is the one guy that you would target between 7,800 and 7,500? Seems like a lot of decent guys in this range. Okay, we'll go back to the cheat sheet here. 75 to 78. So basically Kevin Kisner to Mark Leishman. The top, okay, so Leishman, McNeely, Lanto, they're probably the big three for me. Leishman gets to go to a course where he can spray it wherever he wants. McNeely, I'm just super bullish on in general. And then Lanto, to go with back-to-back top 15s at two courses like Vedanta and TPC Potomac that are so different. And to do it in a way that was pretty inspiring for Lanto, that's good. And again, he's one of those guys that consistently loses around the green. If he, if he's tapping into that, he's screwed anyway. So I'm not worried too much about it. So those are probably the big three for me. Is Taryn worth a look? Callum Taryn worth a look in the $6,000 range. Got off to a really good start last week, right? I think he was one shot off the lead after Thursday's opening round, and then kind of faded over the course of the next few days. Ended up finishing T56. By the week's end, he was only gaining with the putter, which is kind of a normal story for him. He's played okay on the Corn Ferry. He's got a T5 in Puerto Rico. I would not be staring at this set of results and saying it's really, really good. He's got he's made 4 cuts in a row. I suppose that's probably one of the better stretches that we've seen from him this year. He'd have to be really cheap. How cheap is he? He'd have to be like $6,300. He's 64. It's close. I don't know what his upside is, but if you're just looking for somebody to make the cut, Nick, it might not be bad. Lanto, Mitchell, Munoz, or Leishman, without knowing what the scoring system is or what you're looking for, your risk tolerance, Leishman. Hey, Rick, great job as usual by you and Andy this week. Thank you. I'm torn between Will, I assume that's Zalatoris, and Sam Burns. Can you head-to-head them and give us your thoughts? Yeah, so let me pull up the head-to-head matchup tool here while I do this. So, I think they're both very much kind of like the modern golfer, right? I've talked about that with Sam Burns a lot. And I think that Will Zalatoris, once he starts to figure out the putter a little bit, and he honestly has in recent weeks, he's going to be super, super dangerous. So I like both of these guys. If you look at the head-to-head matchup tool, which I've got to zoom in on this, but I've got Will Zalatoris winning a head-to-head matchup 60% of the time. He's minus 150. That does not remove the juice or anything like that. And I imagine it is a lot based on the approach play that is critical this week around TPC Craig Ranch. It's not that Sam Burns is a bad approach player, but Zalatoris is basically second to only Justin Thomas at when you start looking at significant ranges of rounds. Bobby Whalen says, is Luke List rounding back into ball striking form? Seems like a good course for him, and I haven't heard much hype. I tend to agree with this. I tend to agree that it could be a Luke List kind of week. Let's pull him up here. The good thing about Luke List is that he's always on brand. Like, we know what we're going to get. He's going to hit the ball well off the tee. He's going to hit it on approach. He had this little kind of down slumpy thing here for 4 weeks from the Players to the Masters, but now it looks like he's right back to normal, and he's always going to be a horrible putter. That's what he's going to do. So Luke List is always very on brand. If you want to take the chance that this is the 1 out of 12 weeks that he is a zero putter, he probably finishes inside the top 10. If he does what he did at Farmers and he gains 3.7, he probably wins. Like, that's the story. So the good news is Luke List is always on brand. You're just kind of hoping to find the pop week. Hey, Rick, love the content. Can you rank these 3 golfers? Oh, this is a good question. In terms of safety, making the cut, and upside. Wise, Hadwin, McNeely. I think Hadwin's probably the safest, right? He's been really, really good for now a 5-month stretch, and he's doing it in ways that are super sustainable and also still leaning into his strength DNA, which is the putter. So I think he's probably the safest. I think Wise is probably the highest upside guy, right? When you are elite at something like he is from tee to green, and you are, it's kind of the Luke List model, right? It's like just gain 3 strokes putting. Gain 3 strokes putting, you probably win the golf tournament. So there's a lot of juice to still squeeze out of Aaron Wise. So I think he's probably the ceiling guy. Hey, Rick, good stuff as always. Andy mentioned Dylan Fratelli on his pod, and I'm curious your take, trying to distinguish between him, CT Pan, and Kurt Kitayama. Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up. It's a perfect time, Joe. So, okay. Well, let me show you Fratelli's thing here first, and then we'll dive into all this good stuff. I think there are few ways to get access to Dylan Fratelli in which he might be valuable. So he has gained strokes on approach in, 6 out of 7, but it's really only returned 2 top 20s. A T8 at Valero, a T16 at the Honda. The putter comes and goes. That's fine. This makeup, a guy that even when he plays well, you wonder what the upside is, but he's not going to kill you. This makeup is not a great guy to invest in because most of our options are outrights and top 5s and top 10s and top 20s. It's like, well, he doesn't cash that often enough. Or it's matchups. And it's like, well, a lot of books aren't even going to offer Fratelli matchups. The jock market, which this is the perfect time to do it. I want to show you something. So if you go to the jock market data and you go to the leaderboards and you go to the last 10 starts for everybody and how many markets they've profited in, Dylan Fratelli is a huge winner. Dylan Fratelli is returning a 37% ROI over his last 10 starts. His average IPO is 309. His average payout is $4.38 a share. This is stock market DFS. This is the only kind of market where Dylan Fratelli can finish T32nd and make you money, because the whole idea is he just needs to outperform his expectation. His IPO price is his expectation, and then every position on the leaderboard has a guaranteed payout. So he just has to beat expectation, and he's crushing it, right? 37% ROI. It's better than Justin Thomas's ROI and Patton Kizzaire's and Peter Malnati's. And it's just really, really good. So that's what I love about the jock market, is that you can get access to basically everybody in the field. All 156 golfers are legitimate options, and that helps for guys like us. So it's stock market DFS. You can buy, sell short shares of athletes, not just golfers. They just added NASCAR, which is kind of cool. It's awesome. And if you use the code Rick, you can get a deposit match. Joe Idonia and myself, we're going to do a power hour tonight where we'll walk you through the final stages of the IPO. It's at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. It's really just the best for something like that. Can you run through the ownership, please? Thanks as always. Sure. So I think Sam Burns, I think Scotty Scheffler, I think JT, I think Zalatoris are probably the highest owned golfers. You'll see some love for Gooch and for Hadwin and for McNeely, and those would probably be the notables there. Keep hearing conflicting arguments with Sam Wise. Played well in Mexico and a similar driving course here at Byron. Is Wise a Wise play or spend down on someone like Noren? I'm probably too deep into the Aaron Wise stuff at this point, Joe. It's just like I've bet him so much this week. I see the good. I'm waiting for the pop. Probably not the right guy to answer this question, but it should. I think this is going to be a second shot course and a course that will ask you to avoid 3 putts, which I do worry a little bit about Aaron Wise, and also hopefully make a lot of birdies, which I do worry about Aaron Wise, right? Because making a lot of birdies usually means you have to make a lot of putts. Now, I don't think it's going to be 25 under like we saw last year, but if it's 20, what if it's 18? I like what he's up to. Can he actually win? I don't know. I think I answered that one already. Where are you on these 3 golfers? DJ, Spieth, Hideki, rank them out. And then from an ownership perspective as well, Spieth is close to 20%, Hideki near 15, DJ 11. I would have loved Spieth if Spieth was like 12%. The fact that he's 20 has given me a little bit of hesitancy, but I mentioned it earlier. Like when you're talking about ceiling opportunities, there is a lot of untapped ceiling for Jordan Spieth right now. When you are losing as many strokes as he is with the putter, which should be one of the best parts of his game, I'm actually optimistic about that. So I'm quite bullish on him. Hideki is just like, are you comfortable playing a guy that might withdraw after the first round? I probably am, right? I'm a glutton. I think this is a pretty good spot for him. And then DJ, even at that ownership, even at 11%, I'm like a 5 out of 10. I think it's fine. If you want to roster it, I'm not going to talk you out of it. I think that there are maybe some more compelling options of just skipping the entire $10,000 range and starting in the 9K range, but I'm certainly not going to bother you if you want to play Spieth there. Thoughts on Tom Hoge? Generally strong in strokes gained approach and hasn't been in top form the last couple of months. Yeah, we kind of see this sometimes, don't we? Don't we see this, Brian? Let's check out Hoge because I imagine he cooled off a bit after the victory, which is not entirely uncommon. Let me get down to Hoge here. Yeah. Okay. Well, he followed up the win with another good finish and then has kind of teetered off since then. And you're right to point out the fact that he is losing in the ball striking categories is kind of concerning, right? I hate it when guys lose the best part of their game. Now, Spieth is different because he's winning without the best part of his game. When you lose the best part of your game and you finish 58th and 39th and miss the cut twice, oh boy, that's a little bit scary. So I'll probably take a wait and see approach on Tom Hoge, but the second he gives us, 2 good starts, who was it that we talked about earlier that just like, maybe it was Luke List, just like that. Like, just give me like 1 start. That's all I'm going to need to see, but I'm going to need to see something. Grayson Sig or Danny Willett without knowing anything. Grayson Sig. Hey, Rick, thanks for all the content. Who do you think are a few mispriced guys on DraftKings this week? Any particular strategies that you consistently use when playing single entry contests? Well, I would say for single entries, the ownership is always a bit more polarized. The chalky guys are usually chalkier. So I tend to avoid them a little bit more often. And then I leave, a couple $100 on the table, but every week is different. Few mispriced guys. I thought the pricing was pretty fair this week, but let's see. I mean, Gooch might be pretty mispriced at $8,600. Has already won this season. This should be one of the best spots for him. I just think it's quite overlooked because the last time we saw him as an individual was the Masters, and he played great there. So I just think that there's a lot of I don't know. Maybe there is a better sentiment than I think because he's 20% projected ownership. Otherwise, I'll tell you what, Jason Day is kind of interesting. Because Jason Day, like if you flipped his rounds from last week, if he played the 3rd round first, then the 4th, then the 1st and 2nd, he would be like the most popular option this week. But because he played them in the other order, he's not popular at all. 5.5%. I would not mind going back there. Hey, Rick, thinking about Siwoo this week, do you have any read on if he leaves breadcrumbs before his pop weeks? Oh, I don't know the answer to that. Let's find out. We can find out together here, Chris. Does he leave breadcrumbs before the pop weeks? Why am I zoomed out or zoomed in? There we go. There we go. My browser was all screwed up. Okay, let's try this. All right, so let's find his pop weeks first of all. I guess we'd call T2. Well, no, that's not gonna help with the breadcrumb conversation. Played well before his win there. Missed the cut there before his top 5. T61 before his T4. Back-to-back T4s there, but before the first one, he missed the cut. I'm just kind of randomly looking through. I don't believe there's a ton of breadcrumbs here, although he is playing well. He's playing great, isn't he? He's gained strokes on approach in 5 of 7. No, 7 of 8. Gaining a ton off the tee. The Masters is the only place he lost. He lost 3 there. It's a pretty good stat profile. I don't really care if he's leaving breadcrumbs or not. That's a golfer playing very well. Okay, that's my wife. She says, happy 7-year anniversary to RickRunGood.com. That's true. It's this week. I think it might actually be today. Formerly known as DFSOnDemand.com. Yeah, I've basically done this every day for 7 years. Update the data website. It's seen its evolutions. I was looking back at kind of the first iteration of it today, and it made me blush with how horrible it was. And I hope that I look back in 7 more years and say how horrible this video right now is. Like that would be my goal. So thank you, dear. For large GPPs, are Kadira, Armour, or Brian good options if you want to play Thomas and Scheffler? I'd probably like Brian and Kadira a little bit more. A little bit of game theory on Kadira because you got in late, right? I don't think people are going to be all that excited about him. And I think he's going to be very, very low owned. And then Wesley Bryan, who Monday qualified into this, you've got to be playing good golf when you Monday qualify. Now, I don't think this is a particularly great course for either one of these guys, but I probably prefer them over Ryan Armour there. Jim says, are there any plans to add PGA props to your awesome props tool? So that's Jim is referring to rungoodprops.com. Here's a little sneak peek at it. It's basically where you can go and find out all the props that are most likely to win the highest prop. Like this one, look at this one right here. So this is actually kind of crazy. So Tampa Bay, Shane McClanahan, who I've never heard of in my entire life, his pitching outs. So how many outs is he going to go? His line at DraftKings Sportsbook is 16.5, which is what? So 17 outs would be 5 2/3 innings, is under 185. However, the line at PrizePicks is 17.5. So you actually have one more out of wiggle room, and the under is already minus 185. Logan Gilbert pitching out 17.5. That's over 170. You put those together, 6.2% expected value. So that's literally how the site works. It's unbelievable what the edge you have. Like you can literally calculate an edge, and people are like, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense." I'm like, this isn't my opinion. It's literally just math that you have an edge when you take the biggest favorites over to PrizePicks, because PrizePicks somebody was saying like, "Oh, this is just the same as betting parlays." I'm like, yeah, except there's guaranteed payouts on PrizePicks, which changes the entire formula. I don't get why people this isn't my opinion. I don't care if you think I'm right or wrong. It's actually just the math. Back to Jim's question off of that rant. Yes. Yes, there's going to be a lot more props coming. There's going to be a lot more stuff coming. I think we're in week 2. So I appreciate the support, but yes, they're coming. One spot to fill Patton Kizzire, Luke List. I think you still have to go with Luke List. Any initial surprises with the PGA Championship DK pricing? No, it's always similar in these major championships, right? It's a bit soft. There's always going to be a guy or two that everyone's going to flock to and say, hey, this is the most mispriced guy on the slate. You're also going to get a situation where someone like if someone who's playing this week wins, that's going to cause a stir, right? So just, keep an eye out for that stuff. But I'll be doing a deeper dive. I've done some, I love Southern Hills. I cannot wait to talk about Southern Hills. So I'll actually probably be releasing like a first look research thing Probably Sunday, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. I don't know. We'll see soon. Who do you love for one and done? I'm saving Scotty probably next week. Yeah. So I would not mind Scotty. I wouldn't mind Spieth. I wouldn't mind JT, to be quite honest with you. If you want to make up a little bit of ground, I think I love Neiman, right? Neiman is a statistically similar Will Zalatoris, and Zalatoris is much more popular this week because he's a Texan, right? Like that's literally the fact. If you needed to go further down the board, Taylor Gooch. Like where else are you going to play Gooch and be super excited about it? I don't know if there's a better spot where he can spray it off the tee, lean on the irons, get a little motivation from old Maxi boy. Like it's a home week. It's a Gooch week. Any concerns about Sebastian Munoz after his WD at the RBC? I don't recall the reason for that. So generally, no, I do not. If he's playing this week, he's playing. Thanks, Rick, for the work. Best option between $7,100 and $6,800. So that would be basically Brendan Todd, David Lipsky, Patton Kizzire down to Molinari, Lashley, Moore. I would keep my eye on Steven Yeager. We talked about this last week, I think it was. He's been bad this year. He's been bad this season. He has. Played with Joel Damon, got a little bit of, we talked about it before Zurich, like maybe he just needs like a format change. Since he played the Zurich, he went 15th in Mexico, 6th at the Wells Fargo. He's an accomplished Korn Ferry player. He's very good. I watched him live a couple of times last season. He'd be someone I'm pretty sneakily interested in. Hey, Rick, can you explain the tournament predictor on the site? How accurate would you say that these numbers are? Okay, so the tournament predictor is a tool that is on the website that simulates the results of the golf tournament 1,000 times, and then it shows you how often each golfer wins, finishes inside the top 10, top 5, top 20. Then it actually compares it to the odds and shows you what the best bets are. How accurate is it? We'll never know, right? Because I'm simulating the event 1,000 times. It's only being played in reality once. Now, I've back tested it, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's always being tweaked. It's always getting smarter, where basically it learns from itself, right? And it learns the types of golfers that win a lot, or the characteristics of winning golfers. You always kind of see like Sam Burns always is like a little bit higher than maybe you think he is, because the algorithm is like, okay, 3 wins in 13 months. These are the attributes. These are the key indicators of things that allow guys to win. The other, so, and I have a spreadsheet somewhere that shows like, of the golfers who are projected to win over X% of the time, how often are they winning? So I could pull that out. But the problem with that is no one else is going to give me their information. So like, I might think those are really good, but I don't know what the rest of the industry is up to, or if anybody really cares. So take it for what it's worth. I use it a lot in helping finding betting value, and it's been pretty successful. I'm 10th in the Rick Run Good one and done. Wow, that's pretty good, Brian. Have a lot of guys left, like Burns or Xander. Either is fine. I mean, I guess you're more likely to use Xander later, so you could use Burns, but they're both great. And you're in 10th, and either one of them would probably be considered front running, and I wouldn't mind either. Is the purse large enough to feel good about using JT here or saving him for later? I believe Justin Thomas needs a win more than just about any of the top guys, and I think that he's been very, very close, and I think that he's basically the best player of 2022 that doesn't have a win. And it's 1.6 million up top. Is he, if his expected value in this tournament where there's 7 of the top 15 and 1.6 at the top, is his expected value better than next week when it's 2.1 million up top, but the top 100 players in the world are there? Like, it's probably higher this week, his EV, just like if you simulated the event a million times. So I think JT's a great spot here. Hey, Rick, thanks for all the content. Could you do a deep dive on Brandon Wu? Yeah, we spent a lot of time on Brandon Wu over the course of the past couple of weeks, but just for kicks, let's go back. Missed the cut last week, right? So here's Brandon Wu. Missed the cut last week to Wells Fargo, but is basically because he lost 2 strokes putting, which is something he has not done since Pebble, and it's something he's only done twice in his PGA Tour career. He's generally a pretty good putter, so this is probably a decent bounce back spot for him. And also, again, I'd prefer you comp. They're not perfect comps, obviously, but I would much rather look at Mexico Open results for guys with small sample sizes than I would Wells Fargo results. So that's another checkbox for Brandon Wu. So fire away. Who is your pick to win the Stanley Cup? I don't even know if I know who's like in it still. Let's go with, I assume the Lightning are pretty good and still involved. Let's go with them. Hi, Rick. Had to find an alternate for Brooksy's WD. Who would you prefer, Hadwin and Gooch? Hadwin or Gooch? Hadwin, I can't read. Who do you prefer over Hadwin and Gooch? Adam, I don't even know if I know what this question is asking. So you can't use Brooks anymore. Have you already narrowed it down to Hadwin and Gooch, and you want me to tell you if someone's better than that, or do you want me to choose between? I just play Gooch. I think Gooch is the answer. I am typically a cash single entry player. For the first time, I'm heavily considering Spieth. This just feels like a Spieth week to me, and I don't worry about motivation for him. Fire away. Does Lashley fit here? I like Lashley. Do you worry at all about the toe injury? I think that's what he cited when he withdrew. He was kind of already out of it, so maybe not, but I do think it's a good buy low for Spieth. Answered that question. How do you decide on a type of build, stars and scrubs versus balance, and what are you factoring in a preferred build type when you make a core cascading? Core cascading is kind of a completely different beast. So I factor in a lot of different things, but just so what I look at here is, how much ownership is going to be at the top of the board and how many guys do I have to fade? There are sometimes when you're going balanced, like if you're not taking a top 10 guy where there's like 10K guys and you're really worried about all of them burning you. Let me just build a path here for fading the 10Ks. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but is it realistic to think that Scotty Scheffler, who's gaining 2.1 strokes per round over a Tiger-esque number of strokes over his last 25, is not going to gain that every single week? That's pretty reasonable, right? Even if he gains 1.3 and he finishes T11, then fading him was probably the answer. Justin Thomas, who hasn't won in 15 months. Maybe it's longer than that. And will be heavily owned again. If he finishes T8, a fade was probably the right play. DJ, who we've seen good and bad from, and he didn't play at Craig Ranch and he hasn't played this event since 2017. Could you see him not playing well? Sure. And then Jordan Spieth is just a maniac. So when I start looking, there are weeks where you're like, holy crap, there's no way that Rory's going to suck here. Or there's no way that so-and-so is going to suck here. Like they're just not. Like Morikawa is going to shred this place, something like that. So I look at that. And then I kind of look at kind of the pivots here. Like, if I started in the 9K range, what could I get access to? Could I get access to legitimate win equity if I started with Hideki and Xander? Yeah, maybe I could. Could I get that? And then what's the drop off? Because sometimes you're going to drop off at like the 15th highest price player. And you're like, well, I don't want any of these guys. So there's just a lot going on. I'm sure there's not a right answer, but that's kind of the way that I do it. When cascading, what's more of a priority? Start with 6 guys you love, deal with difficult swapping issues, or 6 golfers with good pivots? Start with 6 guys you love. They're going to be in 16 out of 20 of your lineups. You've got to start with 6 guys you love. You have to work as hard as possible on one single lineup that you love. As hard as possible. And it doesn't matter how much money's left over. I don't care if it's 1,000. I don't care if it's nothing. I don't care what the pivots are. You've got to start, because that's 16 of your 20 lineups are those guys. You've got to go there. Oh, okay. I'm glad you brought this up. Math matters everywhere, which is a sentiment that I certainly agree with. Scott Piercy. Piercy's been low-key pretty good. I'm glad you brought this up. I wrote him up for Golf Digest earlier in the week. So, This was a very uncharacteristic stretch for Scott Piercy from Farmers to the Players Championship, where he lost basically multiple strokes on approach in 6 straight. That's insane. He's usually a very good approach player. Looks like he's bouncing out of that. And now he's got a T12, a 21st, a 33rd, and a 37th. Seems to be back to hitting it well. Actually, the putter's been pretty decent. He's kind of marrying two of the things that we were hoping he would marry for a really long time. And it's turning into some results. So I do not mind that one single bit. I like that. Hey, Rick, do you think Phil will show up at the PGA to defend and purposely miss the cut to get the heck out of there? No, he will not purposely miss the cut. He might miss the cut, but not on purpose. I believe he will. I believe he will defend. I believe he will play. That will be the only event that he plays, and then he will go and play the Live Golf League, the event in London. That is my current guess. I've answered a couple of these, so I'm going to roll past them. Hey, Rick, have you ever had success in a large GPP with only 5 of 6 making the cut? How about 6 of 6 without first or second? Yeah. So you can, the 5 out of 6 making the cut is almost impossible. You basically have to have the winner at a very low ownership, like 1%. If you have a 1% winner, and you might have to have a couple other low guys, and you've got to have a really low 6 of 6 number. It's just so hard to pass up guaranteed points and make that up everywhere else. So there's a very stars aligning situation that gets a 5 of 6 to the top of GPPs. A 6 of 6 without first win, that wins more often than you think. Cause there have actually been times where it probably happens twice a year or 3 times a year where the winner of the tournament is not the highest scoring DraftKings player. It usually happens on harder weeks because a guy will make a lot of pars, win at 8 or 9 under, and someone else will make more birdies or sneak an eagle in, finish second in the tournament, but have made more DraftKings points. It happens like 3 times a year. So that path is much more likely. Is Alex Noren a solid pick with ownership? I have Alex Noren at 11.2%, which would make him on the higher end of the upper 7s, him with McNeely. But because he's between McNeely and Hadwin, I think all of those guys are kind of going to get left behind a little bit. And if you could forgive, the Alex Noren miscut at the Zurich, which you could write off the Zurich because it's a team event, he's been pretty darn good. And he had a top 25 here last year. So yeah, fire away. What are some of your favorite contests on DraftKings? What are some that you regularly play? And what are your favorite contests for low stakes, like $10 or less? Okay, so my favorite contests are always the single entries that pay 2 times to the first payout spot and generally pay like 10% to the winner. So if it's a 50,000 guarantee, 5,000 to the winner. That's the best payout structure in my opinion, and single entry guarantees that I'm on a level playing field. The best low stakes contest, in my opinion, is the $3 birdie. That's the 20 max, in which I generally core cascade, or like it's not prohibitive, super prohibitive to even enter 5 lineups or 10 lineups, or obviously I would hope you'd enter 20, but if you don't want to spend $60 on it and you only want to spend 30 on it, you're not at a huge disadvantage. There is, I have zero affiliation with Roto Grinders, but there is a Roto Grinders plugin for Chrome that will show you all of the payout structure in the lobby of DraftKings. So you could be scrolling through and see, hey, this is a 2x payout for first. This has an overlay. This is how much the top 10 positions are getting paid out. It's a very handy tool. And I obviously have no affiliation with them, so you should probably just check it out. That's a First Cut podcast question from Scott. If Sia is 1 week off, then does that make Sepp a must play for one and done? If he's 1 week off, yes. Oh boy. Okay. Hi, Rick. Forgive me if this is already on your site, but help me out and show us under the hood. How is projected ownership determined? Specifically, what data do you scrape and aggregate? Okay. So I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years. So I could talk about this for literally 7 more years. I don't scrape anything, right? So I have an official deal with the PGA Tour. So I get all my data from the PGA Tour and everything's on the up and up. Okay. Let's get that out of the way. I do key indicator. There are a million ways you can do this, and no one's going to tell you all of their secrets. But I will tell you that over the last 7 years, I have developed a system in which I look at key indicators of not only golfers, but also of user behavior. How are people treated as the highest owned golfer? How are they treated as a golfer in the sandwich pricing? How are they treated after a miscut or going to a course where they've won before? There's like 100 key indicators. And each one of them is ranked and valued differently so that I can get pretty good at the way that the pricing and the ownership is going to come out. I mean, I could spend 9 hours talking about that. Hey, Rick, you're the best in the biz. Thank you. Smash the like button, people. That's a good idea. Who would you play in a GPP, Gooch or Vegas? Probably still Gooch because there's not a huge difference in ownership. Like I have it at 6% difference right now. If it's only 3%, I'd probably just prefer Gooch. Rick, you're the man. As always, stars and scrubs are more of a balanced build. I opted for balanced. Love the content, Rick. Still on Smotherman. Hard not to be, right? He's been a great ball striker. Like, I can pull up the Smotherman stuff. And he kind of rewarded us last week for going back to him. Now, I wish this was more like TPC Potomac in that I wish that his driver, the off the tee game, was more rewarded by narrow, difficult to hit kind of fairways, which is what we saw. Like, right? Like this is the perfect Smotherman stat line. Gain 5.5 in the ball striking categories, lose around the green, and hope to find 2 strokes with the putter. If you gave me that this week, I'd be thrilled. I wish it was more like Potomac instead of like Vedanta. But listen, he rewarded us last week for going back to him. I'm happy to continue going back to him. I'm hoping to find what that upside is. Oh, I just lost my spot. YouTube does that sometimes. Hold on. I'm sorry. YouTube sometimes skips me to the end of the questions, and I'm always way behind. So I'm going to try to find my spot here. So Joshua asked about Matt McNeely, and is there value on it outright? I think McNeely's going to win a lot. A lot is a subjective. I don't know when it's going to be, right? So I'm going to have a lot of McNeely exposure. I think that there are probably better spots for him than this one, but I'm so bullish on him that it's hard for me to find like, oh, this is definitely a good spot for him outside of like Pebble Beach. So I'm just going to be part of the Matt McNeely success whenever it happens and be happy about it. I'm not sure this is a great week to bet him. Where do you think Spieth is on strokes gained? Gives a bleep before a major. Hey, Evan, you know Jordan Spieth unfortunately cares too much about everything. So if he's teeing it up and he's teeing it up in Texas, he is there too. That the dude cares about every shot. He is the ultimate grinder. He cares. Is your site just DraftKings or do you have FanDuel stuff also? I used to have a little bit of FanDuel stuff and no one used it. So I got rid of it. In theory, though, the vast majority of the website is just golf data, right? And you can easily find good golfers and power rankings and who plays well on the golf course, and then use those golfers however you want. FanDuel, DraftKings, Jock Market, PrizePicks, whatever you want. And you can go from there. Which also reminds me, so I started using Juice Reel. And the guys over at Juice Reel are pretty slick. So I always track my outrights in a spreadsheet. which is fine. And then I can do whatever I want with it. But I wanted something that I could sync sports books to. So that's what Juice Reel does. So you can sync sports books. They're building out their golf stuff. I know the other sports are more advanced, but they're building out the golf stuff. And what you could also do is you could also get insights of like, hey, the guys. So since there's something really interesting where, because they have the sportsbook data synced, they know who the winners and the losers are. And it can actually just tell you who like what side the sharps are on, not who they are, but like what side are the sharps on these games, which is better than just looking at the money coming in and saying that's where the sharp side is. Cause it's probably not true. Just cause you bet a lot doesn't mean you're a winner. So I don't know. I think they have some really interesting analytics and some stuff brewing. And I like the team over there, and I hope that they get bigger. I think I have a link in the description for it. I'm waiting for Armina to tell me. Yes, we do. So download it there and support those guys. I think they're doing a good job. Apparently you might have to refresh if you don't see the link. Armina's texting me right now. Congrats on 7 years. Thank you. I seem to remember you talking about evidence that you shouldn't avoid higher owned players. Will you eventually go into this? Also, what sunglasses were you talking about the other day? Okay, we've got a lot to unravel here. I was saying that you shouldn't. Oh, you know what? I did a 300 yards to unknown podcast where I looked through data theories, and I believe I'd have to go back and watch that episode or look at my sheets that chalk came through, right? Chalk was depending on how you slice it, gaining more DraftKings points to the field than similarly priced non-chalk guys. The industry is getting better at identifying chalk, I believe, is what the consensus was. The sunglasses that I was talking about the other day, and again, I do not get paid to talk about this, are called Gooder. I believe it is Goodr. Those are the ones that Sergio Garcia wears. That's how that came up the other day. And I had conversations with them. They sent us a couple of pairs. They're great. They're like cheap knockaround glasses, which I like. But we never came to a deal. So I'm not getting paid for this. But Gooder. And if go tell them I sent you or something. I don't know. They're pretty nice. Why is this being portrayed as a bomber's course? Last year's leaderboard didn't necessarily show that. I don't know who is portraying this as a bomber's course. I'm portraying it as you can be wayward off the tee. Now, if that happens to be a bomber, fine. Now, distance is always better than no distance. I believe this is a second shot bogey avoidance course, or a 3-putt avoidance course. Big greens tend to help better approach players because you got to hit the right spot. I believe that's what this is. So, Richard, I don't know who's been portraying this as a bomber's course. What stat are you putting more emphasis on, putting or approach? 1 million times over, the answer is approach. For whatever reason, may just be the eye test, I always see Joaquin struggling with long irons. Any evidence to support that? So, I can get you better evidence offline here. I don't have it built into a tool yet, but it's something that I'm working on that I could tell you, but I hate the buckets, Eli, but here you go. He's 10th from 125 to 150, 20th from 150 to 175, 21st from 175 to 200. That's pretty darn good. From 200 to 225, he's not very good. 134th, but I mean, he's pretty good from 190, right? I would say he's probably better than your eye test is leading on, but I might be able to get a better answer for you if you give me a couple days of research time. The Koepka WD makes you more or less inclined to play him at Southern Hills. That's a really good question. Is there any injury to think is there any reason to think he has an injury? Yes, because we knew about this injury, or we knew that he tweaked it. Was it at the Masters? When's the last time we saw him? I think it's his back or something. I can't remember the exact details, but we knew about this. I would be the same amount of inclined to play him. Maybe a little less. I would go from like a 5 to a 4. Hey Rick, love your vids. Can you run another custom model? Yeah, sure. Let's just do that. So custom model, RickRunGood.com. Let me try to zoom in here a little bit. All right. So if you didn't get the projected ownership stuff, click reset at the top. So let's do last 16 rounds. Let's do last 24 rounds. Let's go with, oh boy. All right. What do we want to do here, guys? Let's call it birdie or better, 25. Let's call it 15 on distance, 10 on accuracy. That's my own weighted off the tee stuff. Let's do nothing around the green. Let's do 15 on putting, and I want a lot on approach. And we can do standard approach. That's fine. That's 25 there. So that leaves us with 10. I would put 10 on maybe the fives. You got maybe the fours. There's more fours. Let's just do it on the fours. Okay. And I think I've got all that set. And we will sort by value. My number one golfer is Scotty Scheffler. JT 2, Sam Burns 3, Hideki 4, Xander 5, Johnny freaking Vegas is 6. DJ, then McNeely is 9. McNeely's 8. Gooch is 9. Neiman is 10. Kitayama 13. I'm just looking for like the value guys. Kitayama 13. Spieth is 22nd in that model. That's a little bit scary. Anybody else of note? Just kind of scrolling through here. Interesting. I'm going to lose a lot of money on Neiman this week. Okay. So now I'm getting people following up to other questions. So now it's finally clicking. Some of these things that I read earlier are finally clicking. I can't even tell if this is a real question or not. Hey Rick, can you do a deep dive on Justin Leonard? I don't know if that's a joke or not. No. He's playing for the first time since 2017. Can you do a quick rundown on why ownership matters? Sure. So here's the argument for, all right, let's make it really, really simple. Half the time Scotty Scheffler is going to win the golf tournament, and half the time he's going to miss the cut. Half the time Jordan Spieth is going to win the golf tournament, and half the time he's going to miss the cut. If Scotty Scheffler is 75% owned and Jordan Spieth is 10% owned, the 50% of the time that Scotty Scheffler wins the golf tournament, 75% of people are going to be very happy. Half the time he wins, 75% of people, or half the time he misses the cut, 75% of people are going to be very unhappy. When Jordan Spieth wins the golf tournament half the time, and 10% of those people are now the only 10% that have him as the winner, they have a significant edge on the rest of the field. So basically all you're doing is saying, what percentage of the time is this golfer or this player or this whatever going to do X? And the times that he doesn't do X, how many people are going to be upset with that? How many people are going to play themselves out of it that percentage of the time? So there is an argument to be made that once you get to 27, 28% ownership in golf, which is a very, very volatile sport, you cannot roster a guy because he is going to frequently disappoint you and ruin the week for those 28% of people than he is going to cash. Right? There's just there's a million different scenarios, but I hope that helps. Hey, Rick, big fan of the new prop site. Can we talk a bit about some of the features you'll be adding to it? A ton of new lines and props, more mobile friendly. Ideally, so what we've started to do is storing all of the props so that we can eventually go back and say, okay, well, props with this score have won 70% of the time. Props with this score have won 50% of the time. I would also like to have a spot where it would be easier to track, for everything that I put in, have it all in one spot so I can, so that when the games start, I can go back and track it. RunGoodProps.com. We also talked about a way where when you build your entry at rungoodprops.com that you could just go and put it in at PrizePicks. They don't want that. I without giving away too much information, I'm quite privy to us at PrizePicks. We're winning a lot. We're winning a lot. I'll leave it at that. We're winning a lot. Use the code Rick. Go sign up at PrizePicks. Go sign up at Run Good Props, because they're going to have to change the payouts at some point. They're going to have to, but we will take advantage until they do. A lot of questions about Smotherman, which we covered. A lot of questions about Luke List, which we've covered. Hey, Rick, ever play Prim Valley? Used to play there often and miss it. No, but I drive by it a lot. Thoughts on Champ pivot off Chalky Hadwin? I don't mind it. I don't love it, but I don't mind it. Again, just hope you get the Mexico performance, right? Give me one of those. Oh, God, it jumped on me again. Okay. Anybody stand out as great bent grass putters? Well, that is data-driven, and we can just look at that right now. So go to the Holy Grail. I like to look at like the last 4 years, because some of these guys you'll get where it's like, oh, yeah, they were great from 2018 to 2013 on bent grass. And then let's go to more filters. Bent grass? Why can't I click bent grass? Whoops. There we go. Sometimes when I share my screen, my thing tweaks out. All right. Of guys with decent sample sizes, Snedeker, 58 rounds, gaining 0.8 strokes per round on bent grass. Bo Hostler, 54 rounds, 0.66. Poulter, 0.64. These are just guys in this field. Schenk, Noren, Spieth, Werenski, Putnam, Kokrak, Lonto. All the guys I'm going to lose money on. I answered a lot of these. Hey, Rick, do you worry about the future of golf generally if Live Golf Tour succeeds long-term and all fields get watered down? If Live Golf is a raging success, it would probably be good for golf, right? Anytime that you inject a ton of money into anything, if tomorrow they offered $200 million for the person who could butter a bagel the best, you would have people quitting their jobs and spending their lives dedicating themselves to buttering bagels. That's what would happen. And that has been true in every industry since the dawn of time. So if that tour is a success, it would probably be good for golf. That is obviously ignoring where the money's coming from, which I find hard to do. But that is also not the only way to grow the game. You know, if what I actually think could happen is this. I believe that the Live Golf Invitational, what is it called? International Invitational. I believe that is going to hurt the DP World Tour, the European Tour, in the short term, because you're going to have a lot of guys who take advantage of that, right? Guys that only have Euro Tour status, that are trying to get to the PGA Tour for not only livelihood, but for like whatever, they're going to be very enticed by the purses. And I believe it will weaken the DP World Tour. What I then believe will happen is that the PGA Tour will essentially fully acquire a depressed asset in the DP World Tour. And then the PGA Tour will then create what is essentially a worldwide tour. And whether that is where they run two simultaneous tours and everything is, I don't want to say co-sanctioned anymore because it's the PGA Tour. It would all be PGA Tour stuff, but you could realistically have 80 events on a PGA Tour schedule. You could give out lower FedEx Cup points over there or the same. I don't know. You could then, you could even almost do it like an AFC, NFC, have the winners come together. That's what I think is going to end up happening. We'll see. David says, hey, Rick, when do we get to see some simulator footage? Soon. Hope to have you back on the course soon. Love that content. Thank you. Time to bring in some guests first cut scramble. I've got the simulator up and running. I'm loving it. I am just practicing, honestly, right now. But I just bought a mount. So what I was planning on doing was putting a little camera just behind, right? So you can see down the line and so that you can see everything. I just got the mounts for that. So now I just have to install it and do that. So I'm hoping very soon you are going to get some simulator content. Willie Z or Burns in a one and done. Depends on your position. The answer is probably Burns. Good point. Eli says, remember when people said Rom didn't care about Mexico? The players can't predict when they are going to play well. Therefore, we can't predict when they're going to care. Agree. I've answered a lot of these, so I'm going to just keep scrolling here. We are in overtime, but give me just a second. I don't want to leave these. Am I a psychotic Oklahoma State homer for including Wolf in my core? I'm justifying it with ownership reasons by having both Burns and Willie Z in there. The good news for Wolf is he can hit it anywhere and he can make a lot of birdies. And honestly, okay, real quick. I know we're in overtime, but you guys don't care, right? You just want more content. Okay. If you want to take solace in like the tiniest of breadcrumbs from Wolf, him gaining 2.5 strokes on approach is the most that we've seen him gain since he finished runner-up at the Shriners. And his stat profile from Wells Fargo was eerily similar to that of the Shriners, where he actually lost off the tee and was good everywhere else. The only difference is he putted a lot better at Shriners. Now, he was able to carry that into at least another week or two after that, the last time he's done this. So no, I mean, you might be a psychotic Oklahoma State homer, but it's not the worst time to play Wolf. Did you improve on the golf course right after your wedding, or did you get significantly worse? I think I got better. Have you ever considered a lifetime membership cost? I'd be interested. What would I charge? Right? So the site's $200 a year. I've been doing it for 7 years. I assume the website has another 7 years in it. So that would be like $1,400. What if I charged $1,000? I don't know. I don't know what I would even charge. What if I do it for 30 years? I don't know. Are there going to be computers in 30 years, or am I just going to be sending the data directly to your brains? Is it going to be RickRunYourBrain.com? Like, what's going to happen? I don't know. How are you liking the simulator so far? Freaking love it. Have you compared the weekly optimal lineups versus the big DK tourney winning lineup? Any lineup construction or ownership trends? I have this somewhere. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I will tell you there are usually like 100 optimal lineups that could have been built before we get to the winning lineups. They're just not even close. And they always leave way more money on the table than the winning lineups do. All right, I think we're done. That was fun. There were some good questions. I didn't have to tell anyone they asked a crappy question and all that good stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Listen, we've got the overlap with the PGA Championship, right? So there's going to be PGA Championship content this week, probably Saturday or Sunday. Will be like some research that I've been doing, some course stuff, some trends. It's going to be a lot of fun. Actually, I'll be at the Wynn tomorrow recording it if anybody's going to be at the Wynn tomorrow. But that'll be fun. And then, of course, we'll do just full-on PGA Championship, Major Championship stuff. I can't believe it's here. Otherwise, Jock Market Power Hour tonight, do that. Go sign up for PrizePicks. Go sign up for RunGoodProps.com. Download the Juice Reel app. I think those guys are onto something, and I want to support them. And then let's get that cash. See ya.